Friends, family, and keepers of the faith, welcome to another Del Boy Diary. And as ever, I'm going to date stamp this. It's year 5, blog 27, or in legacy numbers, blog number 235, and it's dated the 23rd of August 2026. And yeah, been an interesting time. We've had a bit of rain. Believe it or not, we had 2 millimeters. Yeah, a whole 2 millimeters. I think it was Thursday. Temperatures have not been in those high 30s. So that rain didn't do anything for the garden, really. But the temperatures have made it a bit more bearable when I've been sitting in here working. That's all I got to really say about that, because I'll talk about the rest of my week after I've got the news out the way. So we'll get the news out the way. All damning, I'm afraid. No actual good news stories, I think, this week. No, there isn't. Latest news article, which seems to have happened while I was sleeping, I think, because I don't remember it during the week. Fatal A66 pursuit crash is what the article started off with. 7 people, including 2 police officers, were killed in a head-on collision after a car was travelling the wrong way, struck a marked police vehicle. What a sad thing to hear about. And I think we've all seen those TV programs of people travelling the wrong side of the road, towards oncoming traffic, people on motorways reversing down slip lanes because they got off of the wrong lane, all those sort of things. This is a pursuit, though. Don't know what the pursuit was about. Obviously, it's going to be something, along the lines of like a stolen car or, some heist of some sort. But yeah, 7 people and 2 police officers. Just sad all the way round. This one was a bit further back in the week. A 6-year-old girl died 3 days after a devastating incident at sea in Shoreham, which also claimed the lives of her parents and her sister. So that's the whole family, I take it, gone. I don't know if this is about the dinghies that come across into this country, but it's so sad to hear of these desperate measures to enter our country, not going through the proper routes, and deaths involved. It won't deter anything. They will still continue. They're leaving for many multiple different reasons. I'm just sad to hear the word death, if you see what I mean. So, what can I say about it other than very sad news, all of these so far. Next one, I heard about some bits at work, but some of it from the news. Offender restrictor zones. So, of course, it's my sector, but although I work in the computer department, so I don't get to hear about a lot of this like I used to. New scheme in October is to be introduced that give new powers to the authorities to confine serious violent and sexual offenders to strict geographical zones on leaving prison and on probation. I always thought it was sometimes a bit mental that a person can leave and then they can go back to their hometown straight away, where they committed the offences. You have to look at these things and say, well, we can't afford to put them up somewhere. We can't afford to sort of like give them money to start their new life or whatever, regardless that they've paid their penance. And it's distressing, for the victims. So it's I always find these things that they're difficult situations, and you get a second chance in life, but you got to understand it's an ongoing thing for the victims. So everything about what I used to do, even though I was always in IT, in the probation service, I heard the stories, of these things, and some offenders really were nice people, that I spoke to. I had to also get involved with the recordings sometimes, and where it was stored, and and then there are the monsters, it's a very difficult situation, and I wouldn't want to be the person that has to come up with the solutions to these things. I don't think I've got the brain and the mind to do so. All I know is that all the way through the probation service, it was called rehabilitation. And I saw all of the character maps, on their interviews and all of that sort of stuff. And of course, everybody will have an opinion of it. I don't. Even though I was in that sector for 10 years, I don't have an opinion because, I've seen some of my colleagues physically and mentally abused. And I've also seen the nicest of people. But is that a betrayal, that they do and they haven't changed one bit? Yeah, very difficult. I really seriously can't have an opinion on that because I've seen both sides. It's awful. Another story: in July, the UK borrowed more money than expected, putting pressure on the new Chancellor for the budget later this year. Now, this I can have an opinion on. In July, I'm pretty sure it was July, we had a new PM come in, and they came in with all of this, let's move things up north and all of this sort of stuff. And then, of course, I know about the cost of living and all of that sort of stuff. And, of course, there's new legislation coming in, which all costs money. So were we going to be borrowing more money? Of course. You know what I mean? But I don't know quite how steep this borrowing was. Doesn't have it in the report. I just know that, did we need to do some of these things? I do have a question mark on that. Something that I thought was already in place. This was an article. Cinema smart glasses ban. Strict new policies are in place for cinema-enabled glasses. Now, we've had Google Glass years ago. And I thought there was already a policy in place that you couldn't wear these things. And you would be removed if they were found that the glasses that you were putting on were for anything other than for seeing with. And here we are with a policy that's come in. I know it died a death, Google Glass. And I know that Meta's and Ray-Ban's new glasses are just now being released in this country after success in America, I believe, or partial success, I should think they are. And I do see a use for these glasses. But, yeah, I mean, we know how piracy is rife in cinema, even though I think there's a dip in it. And the reason for that dip is that things are streamed or bought on physical media so quickly after the initial cinema release. Take it, Supergirl, for instance. Beginning of July was streaming by the beginning of August. And, of course, physical media in the next couple of weeks. So, that's how quickly we've got to turn around. So is there really a need, to record a cam inside a cinema? Those days where I used to download, and I don't mind admitting it, because I bought, and you've seen in the past how much I've bought movie wise. I'd look for something called a telecine version of a film, so that I knew that what I was buying on physical media was worth it. I didn't get to see the cinema aspect of the film at the time, because anybody that knows me in the last 18 months, virtually no time to go to the cinema. But before then, I'd go every now and again. But in the 80s and 90s, I was virtually every week. Those times are gone. But yeah, I didn't really think that it was a big thing anymore. I haven't looked at telecine or cam footage for a while. I knew it was there, but just haven't needed the need to. Do you know what I mean? So yeah, I dare say it's still about, and here we are with a policy that I thought was already in place. And the last one is, reports are in that Prince Harry and Meghan Markle are planning to return to the UK. This was all over the news. A lot of questionings of what's changed. Why are you coming back? All this in the news in regards to security. What are you going to do when you're over here? Is this more taxpayers' money that's going to be funding this? And of course, he was also in the news because he lost a big case against a newspaper where he's got to put his own money in to pay the court fees. They all have insurance when you go into these court cases, but it doesn't cover half, I believe, of the actual court case. So the people that were involved in this, and I think there were some big name celebrities plus Harry, have got to put their hands in their pockets and pay it. I dare say he's got the money. He's done some TV shows based around his life and all of this sort of stuff. I know the other celebrities will have the money. It's not a big thing for that. But I don't know quite what it was, what the losing part of it was, because I think it's different to the hacker scandal. I think this is to do with harassment type stuff. So you hear about all of the times that the papers have had to pay these money out, but you don't hear too often anymore about celebrities losing. So that was there. And then the last bit was, unfortunately, another rest in peace, and it's for, you'll have to excuse me on the pronunciation of this, it's Hayden Panettiere, something like that. I can't pronounce her name. She was 36. Lovely lady. I thought the first thing I'd known about her was in the TV show Heroes, early 2000s, I believe. She was the cheerleader. So it was all about her, really, because it was always about Save the Cheerleader in the first season. But when you look at the article, that was on the news about her death, a very untimely death, 36, what age is that? You just feel a great loss. And you saw some of her earlier work. She was in adverts and early TV stuff. And of course, I know her from the Scream films and Heroes. I never really watched the TV show Nashville, although even that has been advertised a lot because ITV have got their web service, ITVX, and it's advertised all the time about Nashville. But apparently she died of a cardiac arrest. And I knew that she was in the news in the last year because she's been doing the rounds, like Loose Women and lots of American Good Morning shows and stuff, in relation to mental depression. And of course she also was battling substance abuse in her early career. And of course she's got a daughter, but apparently she was found unresponsive, and it seems like a cardiac arrest. But we don't know for certain because there's no toxology report or anything like that at this early stage. But it's just sad. It made me think about Heroes again, that TV show, which a lot of people remember fondly in the first year. What a great show it was. And then, of course, there was a writer's strike and all sorts of stuff that went on, and it came back, and it was a shadow in its second season. And subsequent seasons after that turned into a sort of like a farce, really. And then they tried to bring it back, and it came back for one season a little bit later on. And, I suppose you just can't catch lightning in a bottle twice. The writer's strike obviously destroyed an awful lot of it. I mean, it was quite a convoluted story anyway, because there was a lot of people this affected, this Heroes. It kept bouncing about between these Chinese or Japanese characters and the cheerleader and her family. And, there was a couple. One was just come out of prison, I think. All sorts. And it was all about a cover-up of some sort, people with powers. So, of course, I was quite interested in it because of the comic side of things. I believe it really was quite respected in that first year. They even, I think, brought out a comic on it. It wasn't by Marvel or DC, it was one of those indie ones. Just like the X-Files had a comic for a while. Still does, I think. Again, could be under Dark Horse, could be IDW. Not quite sure the company that they come out with. But some of those are really quite good. Adaptions or continuations. So that's great. So that's the news about my week, I suppose. Not an awful lot to talk about, really. I was so at work. I was in the priority week, and it just so happened that the priority week was very low in numbers for me to do. So it was very much like all the previous weeks where I was on data quality. There I was hoping that I was going to get a good repetitive sort of week of lots and lots of uploads that needed to be done, and didn't occur. So you could look at it as a blessing, like, oh, well, at least you got to do some and it wasn't too stressful and all of that sort of stuff. But, of course, I also just don't like, sitting around or organising my work schedule or doing training and things when I want to be paid for work. Do you know what I mean? So there was that. And, of course, there was a day in the week, I think it was Tuesday, where I had my phone call. It was a Teams call about the chair that I'm sitting on, in regards to the fact that I believe I need a newer chair to help with some of my newer ailments that have happened since I damaged further my back. So I spoke to this lady. She started to talk about how the meeting was going to go and what it was all about. And I explained to her, I'm well aware of this, just so that if you look in the history, you'll see I've had several of these occupational healths. So I said I was ready. And I told her what I'd done already to try and speed things up. And what my expectations were, which is that the big problem I've got is this chair. is just under or the same level as the desk. And that means that I can't move the chair forward because the arms get in the way. And if you remove the arms, if you got a chair that remove the arms, I've got no elbow support. And you therefore can't use things like laptop risers because that raises your hands even further. It'd be a sort of like a pain on the strain on the wrists. So I told her about, I'd done some research and found some chairs that have what they call swing arms. They're called 4D arms. And they also can lift up at the tops so that your wrists are lifted up slightly so that you can go over the top of things. But I told her that the catalogue that the company I work for, the MOJ, doesn't have those types of seats in their catalogue. So I need assistance on whether she thought that the problems that I've got, recommended that I have a different chair. And I did tell her that this chair was now 5 years old. And of course, I did say when I got the chair that it wasn't quite the chair that I envisaged because of this swing arm thing. So it was about an hour long, the talk. I had to have a tape measure. I gave her the dimensions. So just to give you an indication, my table is 30.5 inches high. The arms go up to 29.5. So it's about an inch difference. And the more that the arms are lower, the more that the ridges on this table here cut into, put a groove in your sort of lower arms. So it really is something that would go away if you could raise them slightly higher, or you could swing them in like a captain's chair. I'm sure you've seen it in a science fiction show where the captain sort of like sits in his chair and then slams the arms inwards for battle stations or whatever. These chairs, they've come a long way, but they are many different prices. And the chair, I think, that we get from our catalogue, the most expensive one was, I think it was £350. And the two that I'd investigated, one was £299 and the other one was £699. But the £699 one, was just the initial one that came up, which I put into a search engine. Good quality, doesn't break easily, less plastic parts, that sort of thing. So, of course, that was going to come up with a bloody expensive chair. Anyway, we had a nice chat, and that happened at the end of the day. So literally there was about half an hour left of the day before I finished for that day. And I haven't seen the report yet, but it could have gone automatically to my manager, so I'm not sure. And the manager that it would have gone to is not back in at work until tomorrow. So I'll know probably more at the beginning of this week coming. Other than that, that was pretty much my week for work. When it comes to my mum, well, the first thing that happened on Monday was my call to occupational health in regards to the bed. Now, the bed's got two specific problems, other than it's, we've had it now for 18 months and it requires a service, and it's quite old. It's not one of these beds that you see in the hospital wards, the nice newer ones that are all singing and all dancing. This one's one of the older, what they used to use in the 80s type beds. It's a great bed, don't get me wrong, and it's got a inflatable mattress that pumps air in based on how you move around in the bed, so it constantly adjusts and all of that sort of stuff. But oh my God, does it creak. I mean, you're moving the bed up and it goes into all sorts of positions. The legs move up, the head moves up, and in the middle, It all balances out all really nice, but it creaks. Oh my god. But the reason that I phoned them up is that it has these two pistons on both headboards, you know, the headboard and the footboard. It's got a piston, and when you move the bed up, the piston goes up and it pushes against the head of the lip of the head and footboard, pushes the bed up. But one part, the foot of the bed, goes higher or faster than the left side. So you get an imbalance. It does this after a while. It does this. And it's terrible, really. And you have to drop the whole bed down to the ground for it to correct itself. Because when one side goes down to the bottom, the other one's still going. You see what I mean? And then when you lift it up, it goes at the same, you know, even that it's supposed to until after a day, and then it's back to uneven again. So I phoned up the occupational health team, told them about the problem, told them that I'd used WD-40 as I was instructed to when I last phoned them, which was about 9 months ago. I was telling them then that there was a problem, and they said, take the green caps off the tops of the corners of the bed and spray WD-40 and it will oil the pistons. And I went, okay. And that's having no effect now. So they said, yeah, we'll send somebody out. But again, here's the problem, right? This isn't their issue, but it's a problem. What do you do about a person that's immobile? They're going to come between 8 and 5. No time given. They're going to phone just before they arrive, but they will be phoning on digital phones which hide the number. And my phone is my phone provider has got the instruction to block hidden numbers because of all the cold calls. But I did say maybe they can text. That might come through. That'd be good. They said they'd look into that. And the other thing is, how do you get my mum out of bed? The last time we tried was to get her hair done, and it was quite a strain. But the other thing is, are they going to come so early that we should hold back on changing the sheets, which we do every Monday? So there's a number of obstacles that my sister and I have got to work on. We had a little chat about it this morning, to be quite honest, about whether we should just do things as normal or whether we should just hold back because they might turn up at 8:30. I think we've agreed that it's best that we see what happens, especially as my sister doesn't arrive till 8:30. So it might well be that they will come really, really early. But if they don't, we must do what we normally do. And then if we have to do the whole thing again, at least my mother might be out of bed after they've serviced it for us to make the bed and then get her into the bed, if you see what I mean, rather than get where she's always in bed and we have to roll her back and forth to put the sheets and the slide sheet and everything else in. So, yeah, we had a bit of a lengthy talk about that. And, of course, I then asked my sister on Monday, I made the call to the bed, what's happening about my mum's cough. And my sister said she was going to make a call on Tuesday. So on Tuesday, she made that call and a nurse came out that Tuesday. I was at work, but managed to come out just before a meeting, just to, you know, see them do some of the tests, you know, the listen to a chest and all of that sort of stuff. And what they came away with was antibiotics. So we didn't hear from them to say that the antibiotics were ready, but I decided on Wednesday in my lunch that I'd go down and to get them, even though my mother's on the priority and on the delivery service. And when I went down there, which is a 20-minute walk, I had to hang around, didn't I? Oh, I'm not ready yet. we've got the prescription now. We'll do it now. Do you want to wait? Yeah, of course. I want to wait. That's why I've come down. And of course, I had to get back. And of course, the wait was the thing that knocked me over my lunch hour, if you see what I mean. But I did towel work, and they said there was no problem with that. And I always make up the time anyway. I start very early in the morning and sometimes go over the 4 o'clock that I finish. So I've easily made that time up. It was about 15 minutes over, I think I was. Started the tablets, and they finish. The last tablet is Monday morning. So they gave us 5 days worth, 3 tablets a day. Penicillin of a type. It's a penicillin derivative. Haven't really noticed much of a change. I know every time my mum's took antibiotics, she's gotten sleepy. And that's been no different. And it's about it really to say about that. Yeah. So I've tried to keep my mum entertained as best as possible. There's been lots of work to do around the house, so not all the time can I be in the same room, but I always make a point of watching TV at night with my mum as best as possible. But there's still prep to do in regards to before my sister arrives, because you don't want to be rushing around at 7 o'clock in the morning getting your mum her breakfast and a cup of tea and giving her her tablets, as well as getting the room ready for when my sister turns up at 8:30. So I do a lot of that the night before. So there was that to do. There's been times where I've wanted to spend more time with my mum but haven't been able to totally. But it's not been that bad. Don't get me wrong. Just trying to think what else really for my mum. So we got the bed service and the antibiotics, keeping my mum entertained. Now, she came up with something really quite amusing. She said she wanted a Bacardi and Coke. Now, she's on antibiotics, so you have to be really careful here. But I went over the road and got a bottle of Coke because I'm not drinking fizzy drinks. I'm on water these days and haven't bought trays of cans of drink for, it must be 10 months now. I put a thimble of Bacardi in one of those sippy cups and filled it with Coke. And she drank about half of it. She said that was nice. And I said, Mum, you can have a much better one after your antibiotics. I can't give it you now. She understood. And we had great fun on Friday because it was the start of the Premiership. And anybody that knows us knows that I'm a Coventry supporter. My dad was a Coventry and Aston Villa supporter. But my mum was the Coventry supporter, and that made my dad watch Coventry. Because his dad, my dad's dad, my granddad, was an Aston Villa supporter. So in that side of the family, it was Aston Villa. And of course, Coventry, after 25 years, are back in the Premiership. And the first game, the very first game they have to play, is against the champions of last year, the Premiership champions, Arsenal. And there was a side of a debate, in the communication that you have at the beginning before the game that said it doesn't matter about the result because this first game is going to be very special to the fans, very special to the team. They're going to be playing in the Premiership. A lot of these players will never have played in the Premiership in their lives. And it's because it's a newish team. And they can only build upon things. I predicted before the game started that it would be 3-1, right, to Arsenal. I knew that Coventry would lose, or the aspect of it was that they would lose. And I thought that with all of the money that they spent, by the way, this is a true fact. When they went out of the Premiership in 2001 and went back up in 2026, they had only spent in the whole of that period of time on players £75 million, which sounds a lot of money, but think about it. 75 million is a drop in the ocean for 25 years of playing pro football. This summer, they spent 121 million. Now, I don't know what that is because the name sounded similar. What I think they did was, instead of them having what they call loans, they bought the players, right? So a couple of the players that were there are new, but there's a couple of players there that they bought outright rather than return them after their loan spell. So anyway, 121 million. And I watched the game and I was a little bit embarrassed. Now, the reason I was a little bit embarrassed was we've had a big summer of World Cup football. And there was one game against Argentina where we went out, held them back for one whole half. And then the second half, we got a goal early on. And then we defended, and we lost. Right? In this particular game, after the first half, where I think Arsenal scored 2 goals. First one in 15 minutes. Right? The percentages of play was Arsenal had the ball for like 69% and Coventry 31%. And of course they came out in the second half and they scored within 5 minutes, and then that was the end. So it was 3-0. And what I would have liked to have seen is just for Coventry to have got one goal or more attempts. But apparently there was one attempt and that's it. And the percentages didn't change. So, and the goals that I saw, they all seem to come about from mistakes, which you expect. But there was so much space, even though they were defending. Arsenal were just all over them. And the interview with the man of the match at the end, he said that was a good hard game and they gave us some problems, but I know that we can do better. And I'm going, this is a guy that's just beaten us 3-0, right? And I was just thinking to myself, yeah, the game that I watched, it could have been 6-0. You know, it could have been a real embarrassment. I don't know whether they let them off or whether it was as hard as what they were saying, but I was watching it and I was going, wow, even I can see the holes and the gaps and the no marking of the strikers from Arsenal. There was no marking. It was pretty poor. And I know that their next game was at home, so this one was an away game, and they're going to be playing the other team that came up, which is Hull. And I thought to myself, oh, that'll be a little bit better. So, of course, I was listening to the scores yesterday. Oh, my God, Hull. They won against a quite high tier team, Man United. And I just thought to myself, oh, my God. I think these Hull have spent less money and beat Man United in the first game. So is Coventry going to have a hard game against them? Because what you have to remember, it's not going to be like last season where they beat them a couple of times. They've got new players now, and we've got new players, and they didn't seem like they're gelled. That's the thing. So it is going to be at home. So maybe I'm distressed for no reason whatsoever. But that's my bit about the football. And the reason I brought it up is it was a fun thing that this morning I asked my mum, do you remember us watching the football on Friday, Mum? And she went, yeah. I said, do you remember the score? She went, yeah, 3-0. I went, wow. I said, Mum, that's great. You remembered that? Said, did you remember who they played? She went, Arsenal. So that's great. You know, a person that, you know, we know's got dementia remembered that. So that's good news. So I came away feeling quite happy this morning that, she remembered all of that. And that's pretty much the week, because you've had my mum, you've had me, you've had work. So that's the end of that. So thanks very much for that. I hope that filled you in with most of my diary there. And we'll get to the shout outs. And as you know, I'm always pleased, aren't I? For anybody that's watched. It's been a bit of a weird week with YouTube. I saw my figures going up and then they dropped. They actually took views away. And I looked, and it's because there's a new policy that YouTube have got where the figures will update slower, which I realise, and views can go down if they believe that the views, well, you know, just for seconds or whatever it is, rather than a single click and you watched, oh, you made a mistake and you come away. Do you see what I mean? So, yeah, it dropped by, I think, 15 or 20 views. I was going, what's happened there? The other strange thing was there's a lot of shout-outs today to read out, and it doesn't cover the likes. So I know it's very difficult for people to like something, but that just made me chortle, really, because I don't do it for that. This is a diary, but I just went, oh wow. And when I spoke to Ian Hill, the Ramblings, this week, we've been talking about how things are going. He's doing really well, by the way. He was talking about that the YouTube changes seem to indicate what they're trying to do is get rid of the smaller people and only want to keep the people with thousands of subs and views. So the little man is being, or the little, you know, the little person, the little channel is swiped to one side, which, if it's true, is a shame, because I've enjoyed my time in this 5th year. You know, I've done actually more reviews of games and films and my hobbies than I've done diaries, because I always knew that I wanted to do that, you know, partake in some of my passions. But in the last, I have to say, 8-9 weeks, so it's nearly 2 months, I haven't done hardly anything. But I'm approaching my holiday, and that's when I'll probably be doing a lot more. So you will see some live streams, you will see reviews of games, you will see reviews of films. All of that will be coming out because I've got a period of time off. And because I'm a carer, I can't go really on holiday. So I'll be at home. So what am I going to do with myself? Well, I'll do some stuff around the house, of course. But the rest of the time, I can do with what I want. Maybe watch a few films, play a few games, but also do some stuff that I really enjoy doing, which is YouTube videos. So, yeah, watch this space for that. So, again, big thank you to all those that watch. The biggest thank you to those that left comments. Thank you so much. And hopefully those people that left a comment did leave a like. But, you know, that's totally up to you guys. But I'm going to read out the names now of all the people. And my God, is it a long list? We've got, starting at the top, and these are in no particular order, Steve Still Plays Games, Carl Todd, Denny, Ian Hill The Ramblings, LFC Gamer and Vlogs, Wee Bob Art, Rocket Bunny, Bushman Blue, Muckman Movies, Colin Jones aka Ponder, Down the Rabbit Hole, David Marshall, Martroid, and Robert's Retro Gaming. So you can imagine, what's that? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 14 people last week. It was 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 8, 9, 10. So it may sound like a small amount, but remember, I've got to read the comments out. So that'll be a longer section. So I better get cracking with that, hadn't I? But before I do that, I'm just going to get some more water, because you can see, look, I'm getting low on that. And I'll be back and I'll read out the shout-outs. Won't be a moment. And I'm back. And I've got some more water. See there, look. And some time's gone by, but we're in the shout-outs, aren't we? And we're going to read now the comments to those shout-outs. Thank you to all those people that have left comments, and to anybody that watched. And these are in no particular order, but the first one that I'm going to be reading out is from Carl Todd, and I'm going to make the writing a little bit larger, make it a bit easier for me. And he's put, "Hi Del, it's another Sunday morning here, and I'm writing a comment for you. Work is still very intense, so the weekdays just seem to disappear in a blink of an eye. Yesterday I was catching up with jobs around the house, so last minute on Sunday again. I hope that you and your mum had a peaceful week. It's not everyone's cup of tea, but I'm happy that the Premier League is back. I think that it will be an interesting season, since many teams are rebuilding and changing managers." Yeah, and that's pretty much what they were saying very early on Friday when I watched that game with Coventry. He says, "I have to dash since we're going out soon, so into some questions. Salo is getting a 4K release, and The Devils is getting a short cinema release. What is the most controversial film that you own? Also, is there a controversial film that you want to see that you've never seen?" Oh God. That I own. Exorcist. I suppose that was controversial at the time. I bought that a couple of years back when they released it in a deluxe set. I remember some of my friends. It came out in 3 different versions, if I remember rightly. There was a steelbook, a sort of mid-deluxe set, and there was a bloody Bible steelbook sort of set that sold out so quickly I couldn't get to it. I bought the middle one, which still had a steelbook in it, but wasn't the one that I really wanted. But it's not really about, it's about the film, isn't it? And each of those releases had the same transfer. So I got that. I have got The Last Temptation of Christ in my collection, although it's a DVD. I've never got round to buying a Blu-ray. I don't think there's a 4K, although there could be. But I know I've got that. Can't think really. Controversial. But you ask, are the ones that I haven't seen? Well, I haven't seen Salo. I think it's called 100 Days of Sodom, isn't it? I believe it's, quite a controversial film. Never got around to it. I know in a watch-along a couple of years back I saw Cannibal Holocaust. But I tell you something now, I wouldn't want to see that again. No. That's a very controversial film. Quite rightly it's controversial, and I didn't like it one bit. I think I said at the time I understood why it was made, but not something that I'd want to see again. A film that's not controversial, really, although I suppose you could count it as controversial, which I watch on very rare occasions, is Schindler's List. It's about the Holocaust, which makes it a very uncomfortable watch. And it's a very powerful film, definitely worthy of all of its accolades. But it's not like you're going to sit down and watch it like Star Trek the Motion Picture, or, or a comedy, Planes, Trains and Automobiles, or anything like that. You've got to be in the mood, and maybe something in the news will jog you, like somebody will come on along and say, I don't believe the Holocaust happened or something. And you then go back to that film and watch it again and you go, Wow, that's harrowing. But yeah, I haven't seen Salo, and I'll have to look into it on whether I'd want to. What else have you put? The most controversial film you own. I've done that. Is there a controversial film that you want to see that you have not seen? So I suppose that's the one. I probably would want to go and see that. I know that there are other films, but I just can't think of any at the moment. This is the beauty of being asked a question, and you have to think on your feet to actually come up with the answer. So, but I can tell you now, Cannibal Holocaust, no. They actually killed a turtle, and they showed them cutting it up. It's a cannibal film. It's going to have that sort of stuff, but you saw it suffer. That's the thing. And I wouldn't want to see that again. No, definitely not. So the second question, I know that your time is limited, but I wonder if you've continued watching Silo. That's different to Silo. It's been really interesting to see the story develop and learn more about the before times in the recent episodes. Now, I can't remember if I've even started watching Silo. I know of it. I know because it's a dystopian film, TV series, set around a bunker where humanity is now staying, and it's a multi-layered bunker. But it's on Apple TV, and the one thing I haven't got is Apple TV. I do not have an account for Apple TV. I think I had it for a very short period of time when I renewed my mobile phone agreement. You got these what they call bolt-ons that you got free for 6 months. But I think I got Apple Music. Don't know if I got Apple TV. No, I'm pretty sure I got Apple TV. And that might be where I watched a couple of episodes. But it was several years ago. And I don't even know how many seasons there are on it. I know it's based around a book. Books, should I say. I think they're called Dust or something. Dust. 3 books, I think there are. Maybe 4. Probably 4 books. But I know it's one that I need to write down and watch. So I think I will do that. In fact, I'll do it now before I forget. Silo. Apple TV. Yeah. So I'll look into that. So you've put all the best to you and your mum. Thank you so much, Carl. It's great that you spend your time when you've got very little to actually ask me a question and a comment. And I hope I've given you some answers there. Salute, my friend. And we get to the next one, which is Steve Still Plays Games. Great that some of his comments are remaining in. And he's put, "Hi, Del. Hope you are okay, mate. Sorry about missing that video you did. Shorts popping up all the time honked me off so much that I installed an add-on to block them. So that's why I missed your A to Z video. Sorry about that." That's fine. It's one of those things where I've already said that I don't get time to record some things, and I was asked to do an A to Z of gaming with the letter T. And at the end, I nominated someone. But I couldn't go around in Discord and then leave a comment, "By the way, I've nominated you, mate, just to let you know, blah, 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 blah." So you hoped that because I mentioned it last diary entry, or it might come up in their alerts, that they'd be aware of it. And unfortunately, only one person did anything. And that makes perfect sense. The third person, I think, was Down the Rabbit Hole. And again, like I say, it's a short. So it's not necessarily going to come up in people's alerts. But it all purposely puts weight to the thing where I said that you're not advertised so much in people's sort of like alert stream. So totally get it. So he put... to block them. So that's why I missed the A to Z. Sorry about that. I did try to watch you and Ian on Wednesday, but it's really not the same at all when I cannot comment or ask a question. I know it's not your fault. It's just really annoying. Yeah, the only thing I can advise about that, because it's nothing to do with us, is like many people, although people have a YouTube account, you can have more than one. So you can create another, you could do two things actually. You can create another email and then create another account, which is not going to be one that you're going to be using for YouTube per se, for your own channel, but you use just to watch, right? The other one is that you can actually have multiple channels under each one email account. So you can actually create a secondary account under the original one that you got. And but I'm not sure how YouTube do in regards to if you have a problem with your main Prime account, whether that would also go for subsequent ones on the same account. So my advice is, matey, set one up called Steve Still Watch Movies or something. It's just a jokey one. Come in, we'll know who you are. But that's totally up to you, matey, and we don't hold anything against you. Just, as you say, damn annoying. This week has been mixed for me. My mum is getting worse, and I fear that soon my stepdad won't be able to copy with her. I think that means cope. Won't be able to cope with her. I know you're dealing with the same kind of thing, and it's just awful. Yes, it is. But you wouldn't want it any other way. You want them around. So live for those moments, matey, is the best I can say to you. Okay, I don't have a question, so I'll think one up on the spot. Let me think a moment. He's put "let me think a moment," but I know what he means, and I like the way that he's written it, like it would be appearing in his brain. Let me think. That's really quite good. Okay, name 5 people, famous or not, that were or are very special to you, family not included. Oh God. Well, I think one he already knows, and that's Muhammad Ali. My dad and I watched the boxing, and we reminisced and talked about early fights, and that went on for all of my life. And even when he was gone, I like to go back and watch those early fights with Muhammad Ali. Because I played piano and studied music for a little while at school, Elton John will be one that's special to me. I just like his piano playing, and I like the idea that when I first was introduced to him, that they said he was the greatest rock pianist. There were so many other pianists I could have had, Freddie Mercury and Billy Joel and those sorts of people that were great pianists as well, that I discovered at the same time as I discovered Elton John. And it's just grown since then. I've got a greater appreciation of these people that play piano and have them in their music. So that's great. So yeah, Elton John. I suppose when it comes to space, there are so many, that are in the background that do all the maths for the Voyager missions and things like that. But Neil Armstrong and later on Jim Lovell will come to mind for obvious reasons. Neil Armstrong walked on the moon, Jim Lovell, the successful disaster, and I watched Apollo 13 only this week, so that comes to mind. There's probably lots of others. In my childhood, I'd watch Daley Thompson in the Athletics, or Steve Cram, or Ovett, or and then there's actors, that I really love to watch on telly, and comedians, Steve Martin and all of that sort of stuff come to mind. But I think you've got 4 there, and I think that's a pretty good answer. So you end your comment with all the best, mate, and stream, please, when you can, and I will. I told you I've got a couple of, I've got some holidays booked, which will give me more time to do things like that. So watch this space, really. Salute, my friend. Thanks very much for all that you do in your channel as well. I'm very amused every time that I watch your stuff. It's great. Gives me something to look forward to, for that alert to come up and say, Steve's got a video. So that's great. Moving on, we've got Denny, my friend Denny, and he's put, hiya, mate. Hope you and your mother are doing well. I sound like a broken record. Not much has happened again last week, working afternoons till Thursday night. Sadly, Friday, I attended my dad's brother's funeral, though this time it extended to a 2-day celebration of his life. Why is that the only time you meet up with family these days? Yes, it's a bit the same for me. I do know that some of my family come, but I'm usually at work, so I don't get to see them. So I totally get that. Plus, some things have been said that made me think that I'm avoided, but that's just a personal thing from my perspective. But you're quite right. We don't meet up, do we, with our family that often, me included. So you continue. I bought a new, because it's got bought a new portable CD player from Amazon. Got fed up of streaming off YouTube. The ad breaks were pissing me off between songs. Excuse my French, but it's written down that way. This make is a Citroen R300. It looks like an Atari 2600 console. Looks absolutely amazing. And it is perfectly connected to my speaker using 5.3 Bluetooth. There's an offer till the 28th of August if anyone's interested. Sounds brilliant, although I've already still got my standalone Haute Couture CD player down the bottom there that plays SACD, is it? That's what it's called, SACD? Spectral, anyway, recordings. I've only got so many CDs that use that format, but I believe it's a format that is a dying one. Don't really get it. I don't know whether your one does CD text and all of that sort of stuff, but it sounds like a great model, especially if it looks like an Atari 2600. So there you go. Got a video of my latest pickups and a special video of a steelbook this Friday that cost me a fortune incoming. Brilliant. I did mention your latest pickups video. I haven't seen an alert this week to say you've done another one, so I take it that's the one you're talking about. And I totally get the cost of importing from different countries. So I look forward to that. Now then, a topic and my question for this week for you. Bill Hunt from the Digital Bits has posted this on his X account. Now, I don't have X or the old tweet account. So I don't know that, and I don't think if he's got a YouTube channel, I haven't watched Digital Bits. So this will be interesting. I'm now waiting for the inevitable day, this is what the person said, when someone releases a vertical cell phone film into theatres and fans are determined that it absolutely must be 0.56 to 1 ratio when released on a 4K disc. You think I kid, but it's coming. This fills me with dread, you say. What are your thoughts about the possibility of short YouTube video type films released in this resolution? Or I think you mean ratio. Best wishes to both of you and take care, my friend. So that's an interesting one. I think it's Martin Scorsese and a few others that purposely state that they want cinema to be cinema and it's not intended to be watched on mobiles. So the reversing of that and recording on a mobile to show at the cinema and then release that as physical media and have it in the same ratio, yeah, that fills me with dread as well. I think YouTube has its place, but I wouldn't want... I mean, you can record in 4K on your phone. Certain cinema directors have actually recorded films and inserted that footage into their films because the film demanded it in a way, being a low-end film. So I'm a big believer of preserving ratios, but would I want it? No. That's the simple answer to that. I wouldn't want it, but personally, I see it, and yes, I see it happening, and yes, it fills me with dread because I want cinema to be cinema, the cinema that I remember. So that's the simple answer to that. But I am about the preservation, so it wouldn't surprise me if it happens. I mean, when you consider that Netflix and Sky both do films, pay for movies, and they go into the movie cinema, it's only a matter of time before stuff that's on YouTube is shown in cinemas. So yeah, best wishes, and both of you take care. Thank you so much, my friend, and thank you so much, and keep doing what you're doing, and I'm looking forward to that video that you come out, and I hope I gave a good answer. Moving on, we've got LFC Gamer and Vlogs, and he's put, "Hi Del, I hope all is well with you and your mum. It's been an age since I've last posted a comment here, and I can't help but feel bad for this. I've been rushed off my feet with work, and I've been making sure my parents are doing okay. A while back I mentioned my mum was suffering greatly from knee arthritis, which you know I've got, or for arthritis of the knee is what I've got on my left knee, but now it has spread to her hip." Oh, that sounds awful. "And she is in constant agony. She recently had an x-ray, as recommended by a doctor, to rule out anything more serious, and she is currently awaiting the results. I hope those come back well. I had a scan, and they said that I needed an operation, but they said I could live with it, live with braces, and that's how I've been handling that. That's because when I was first diagnosed, it was during COVID. So I'd have had to have gone back to the drawing board and had it all done again for me to continue. And I said, nah, because the COVID thing lasted a long time. And that's the reason why they said I'd have to do it all again. But when my own mum's leg, she had to have, because her hip broke, a rod and 2 plates. But she was complaining about the pain in her legs a long time before that point. And it's because of the fatty tissue breakup below the knee, which apparently is the cushion that makes it so that you can stand and don't feel that you're in pain. And that's broken down because of age. So it's another one of those headaches that you have when you're trying to make an immobile person mobile again. So totally get it, and I hope that's not the case for your mum, that she hasn't got that breaking down of the fatty tissue below the knee, because there's not an awful lot you can do about it. You can have steroid injections, but they don't sound great at all. Anyway, on a more happy topic, the Premier League season has kicked off, and by the time the next Vlog is ready, we will know how Coventry fared against the champions Arsenal. I think they'll retain the title, that's Arsenal, as I see City losing steam now that Pep Guardiola is no longer at the helm. Sorry if I destroyed his name, I'm pretty sure I have. Not sure about how Liverpool will do, since we haven't bolstered the squad by much, if at all. Let's just hope Coventry avoid the drop in their first season back, and that's what my hope is. I said best you could live for was mid-table. What I don't want to see is them bottom 3. And I don't see anything that makes me think that that's not going to happen at the moment. But it's the first game, and they played against the Premiership leaders. Why am I not expecting it? Is for the reasons that I mentioned before, which I don't need to go over again. But anyway, question. What do you think of collectathon platformers? That's where there's tons of collectibles like Donkey Kong 64, Super Mario Sunshine, Ratchet and Clank, and others of that ilk. and you didn't say goodbye or anything, but I'm pretty sure that you wish me well. I'm not a big fan, I have to say. There was a time where I was. Oh, don't get me wrong. But I mean, the one that started it off for me is probably Mario 64 rather than Mario Sunshine. And I love the idea that you went back into the same picture, so you went back to the same level and you played it differently the second time, and you found hidden things. I like hidden things. It adds a bit of spice to the game. You get to the end and it says you found 2 or 3 secrets. It makes you go, oh, there's another secret and I missed it. I wonder where that could have been. And it makes you go back. But I think it was a time for me. So that was the 90s that I was doing that and finding it fun. But now, just a chore. It's like, games. Yeah, you've mentioned some Donkey Kong 64, Ratchet and Clank. I got a Ratchet and Clank down here, believe it or not, because it got a good review. Here we go. Ratchet and Clank Rift Apart. There you are, PS5. Played it twice, I think. So it goes to show you how I'm watching these things at the moment, or playing these things. But I did play the Donkey Kong Bananas game, but that was because of the unique way that you play that game that I bought that. And of course it was at the time when the Switch 2 had just come out. There's my Switch 2 just there. But have I been fans of Spyro and Banjo-Kazooie or whatever it's called, or any of those types of games now? No. So I don't have a great fondness for them or want to go down the route of picking those up again, although I have on occasion gone back to Mario 64, but from a purely nostalgia. I think the last one I played actually was Mario Odyssey. Was it? No, I did play another one, another Mario game, the latest one on the Switch. So I've got that. But where it works, where it's a collectible or hidden in the game or whatever, is role-playing games. That's where I really do love it. It's like a side mission, or you found something on the ground that was actually a magical ring and you put the ring on and it really aids you for the rest of the game. All of that. Love that. Oh yeah, role-playing games. That really does help out no end. And I suppose one of the first early versions of that for me would have been Ultima. I didn't play the very, very early Ultima games. I think it was Ultima 3 I started with. But I have gone back using an account, my good old games account, GOG, and played Ultima 1 and 2. And I tell you what, they were very advanced for the time. Wow. So I will say that. Thank you very much, my friend. And keep doing them blogs. You've been gone away for far too long, and I want to hear your insights on the Premiership. So I'll be keeping out for those alerts. Hope it's going to be continued now that the Premiership has started. So I'm going to say salutator, my friend, and move on to Wee Bob Art, another friend of mine. And he's put, enjoyed listening along, Del. I have watched this a few times. Once while playing FIFA 22 on my PS5. I don't mind the older FIFA games, as they do not really have the microtransactions, etc. Or maybe they do, but I play just the base game. I am sitting trying to get back into drawing, and I think I have maybe figured out why I haven't done that in some time. Well, there are a few reasons, but anyway, I might do a video on that. I keep promising to do videos and then don't. But the urge to do videos is starting to build again. And that's the best time to do it, is when you're all enthusiastic again. That's the best. My plan today is to make lentil soup. And we have some of my kids coming over today to watch a movie. Not quite sure which movie yet, but hopefully it will be a good day. Hopefully you'll be meeting up with Jambon soon, which I think you mentioned recently. I met him at the Leeds Arcade Club, and it is always nice to put a face to a name. We had a few head-to-head matches on a few arcade games, which was great. Anyway, back to this drawing pad and see how I go. Yes, and it is. It's next Saturday I meet up with my friend Jambon. It worked out, I think, cheaper this time, where my sister had to go for an operation and it was an all-day thing. I know I don't have to be at Pinfest, which is what it's called, until about 10 o'clock in the morning. And, of course, every time I have gone, I've always been back before 5 o'clock. So there is only the middle area, the ground at lunchtime, where we need someone to replace me to help my sister. So we need one visit. Now, I kept some money aside and have done for the last 3 months. I've been saving like 50 quid to one side to pay for things like my mum having her hair dyed and stuff like that. And I've got £150 saved by. So that's to give to my sister and to book that appointment. And I told her already that I will be able to change my mum as long as my sister gets here before 9 o'clock, because the travel is 30 minutes from here to that event. So, yeah, I'm geared up and looking forward to it. And it's right at the end of this week where I'm on my holiday. So it's the first thing that I do in my holiday. And what a nice start that will be. So I'm really looking forward to that. Question for next time, if you see it in time. Do you have a favourite older water-based game? One of mine back in the day was Scuba Dive, which was a budget title. And I do like In the Hunt. Water games. Wow. I played Scuba Dive, but I had it on the Commodore 64 and it was nowhere near the class of the Spectrum version. I will say that. Not every game is great, you know, in your childhood on the Commodore 64 compared to between the two. I think it suited the Spectrum far more. Let me think. Ooh. On the Nintendo 64, I bought a game called Wave Race 64. And it was at a time where I was buying cartridges before I got my... I had to move to Manchester and I just stopped playing. But I love the music in that. And then I love the water effects of you being on this jet ski. So that's one. But that's rather more modern than what you're talking about here. Another modern one will be Subnautica, which I was so impressed with that I bought that for my friend Robert. And he did a little series on it as well. I really, really did love Subnautica, so that was great. But on the Commodore 64, water games. Well, I bought... Yeah, this counts, I think. Silent Service. A sort of a arcade strategy type thing in a submarine. That was good. Enjoyed that. I did get the Amiga version because it came out at the time where there was no A500. It was an A1000. But it didn't really add anything. The graphics were slightly better, but not to the extent that you considered it worth an upgrade. But the game was good anyway, so that was all right. And a more obscure one, well, obscure from the point of view that would you consider it a water game? There was a game on the Commodore 64 that I've been recently reminded of by watching a channel called Deep Floppy Drive, where he played Park Patrol. I remember Park Patrol. Wow. Little guy picking up rubbish, rescuing people in the water. You're on your little dinghy and you had to pick up the rubbish and put it in the bin. while you were harassed by things in the water and crazes on the actual ground, you know, the bank that you were walking along. That was a great game. And two really old games. River Raid. That's another one. That was brilliant. Loved River Raid. It's on a river. It's in the title, isn't it? So that's great. That was one of the earliest memories I've got on the Atari 2600, along with Yar's Revenge and Combat and Adventure and all of those. So you can count that as on the water, can't you? Just trying to think. But I was never really enamored by too many games on the water, especially in the arcades. There was a game called Tubing. That was awful. You're a character in a rubber dinghy going down a waterfall type race course. Oh, that was I did not get on with that game one bit. Tubing, atrocious. Yeah, I think that'll do for now. Hopefully that's given you some nostalgic bent. I definitely, if you haven't played Park Patrol, I'd definitely say go and get and have a little look at that. That was brilliant. Salute, my friend. Moving on, we get to Rocket Bunny, who I recently came back to watch Ian Hill, The Ramblings, and I on a Wednesday. Brilliant. And is now back having a comment, so I'm really excited. What's he put? He put, "Hey Del, how are you getting on? Fun to catch up a bit with you and Ian on Wednesday in your stream." It was his stream. I have been watching your videos over the last few months when I can, so I'm up to speed with you and your mum as far as they go, though I would post a quick thanks to you from your most recent diary last weekend. He put blog, but it's a diary, isn't it? Thought I would post a quick thanks to you from your most recent blog. I'm now the owner of a good rubber grip for my Slippy Elite 2 controller for a whopping £8.99 from Amazon. Yeah, they are cheap. For years, I've always grumbled to myself regarding the lack of grip with these things. I've always loved the control feel and accuracy of them, but left struggling for grip sometimes with my dry, I can't even pronounce that, ichthyosis plagued hands. When you mentioned yours was wearing out, I had a bit of a Homer Simpson "Go" moment, as I never thought such a thing existed. So thanks very much. Feels great. So I think I'll give it a workout with a game or two this weekend. Yeah, what he's talking about was, I mentioned that one of my best controllers was this Elite 2 controller. Absolutely wonderful because it's got these things and stuff. But if I put it up, look, you'll see that I've put a skin on it. Right? It's like a silicone skin. And the reason you could put the skin on is because the middle bit there is not filled in. So you just slide it into these arms here. And it covers it. And it really does work well. It's absolutely brilliant. Look at that. Look, you can see the holes that are punctuated. Look, so it keeps the normal controller as it is. So you can still pull things like the D-pad off. You know, there's the D-pad. Because the Elite 2 comes with accessories. Like you can have a higher or lower version of these thumbsticks. So absolutely wonderful. So yeah, that really did work out well. And mine was, yeah, about £6 to £8, 6 to 10 quid, somewhere around there. And it got over that problem because the rubber is molded to the plastic. And what I read about was, because many people were talking about the same thing, is you can't put super glue or rubber based glue down there. It slips, slides. You have to, it doesn't mold back perfectly with the lines where you have to unscrew it to change things that are broken inside it. and so you have to cut it away with cutting knives and things. Put a bloody silicone grip round it. Perfect. Marvellous. So anyway, glad I was able to help. It's always good to hear those good little stories. I'm excited to have the Formula 1 back this weekend. Fish and chips ready as I quickly type this Friday evening before watching the Zandvoort sprint race qualifying, which I watched as well. And it was Russell, wasn't it, that won that? I think you mentioned you had been watching some of it this year. As we head into the second half of the season, any predictions on the championship yet? Safe bet with the very young Antonelli, or maybe we get a resurgence from the more experienced Hamilton, Verstappen, or Norris. Interested in your thoughts? Well, I think you've probably knocked it on the head. If I remember rightly, Antonelli's won 8-9 races. The closest the others have got is 1 or 2 races. He's like 200 or so points, with Hamilton not really close behind, but on about 170 something points. And the reason for that is he has been on the podium about 5 times. I don't see that changing, and I think Norris is too far behind unless something drastic goes wrong. Antonelli will probably be the champion this year, but it's all open to change. That's what makes Formula 1, just like heavyweight boxing, so exciting to watch sometimes. If you have a close season, it's even more exciting. With heavyweight boxing, anybody with a bloody big punch can win. Doesn't matter how crap you are at boxing, one punch will do it. So, yeah, it's going to be an interesting thing. Hopefully I'll be able to watch more than I have done. And, of course, it's on today. So hopefully I can get a bit of a, zip on with this so that I might be able to watch it. Who knows? We're not at the start yet, but we are approaching the point where I've got to help with changing my mum's pad and so forth. So I'll end that there, and it's got take care and all the best to you and your mum. And no, thank you very much, and thank you so much for commenting, and so glad that you're back. Absolutely wonderful. Fantastic. Might be able to get one more in before I get to the point where I have to help my sister. So we get to Ian Hill, the Ramblings, who, as you know, great supporter of my channel. I'm a great supporter of him, and I do my live on a Wednesday with him, and we had a great time this Wednesday, but we'll talk about that a bit later. He's put, "Hi Del Boy, I hope you and your mum are doing okay and that your week has been okay. Enjoyed our Wednesday live, such a lot of fun. I don't know what happened to my comments last week. Also, only one is now showing. Very strange. Fingers crossed it will be okay." And I can answer the one who's still showing. 9, I mentioned it last week, 9 comments came up. And of course, I therefore, don't want to scroll past 9 exactly the same comments going down. So I got rid of the others, but left 1. Do you see what I mean? But I hope it was an internet connection, but it ended without seeing the whole of the comment. So I don't know what was going on there. But you continue. Today I received my first state pension payment, so I'm officially a pensioner. Still waiting on the saga of the University of Leicester pension. Yeah, because that's your private one. Keep on top of that, matey. Feels so much cooler today, and I feel very comfortable. There were also a few showers, but not any big downpours. Yeah, we never had any downpours. We had 1 or 2 millimeters. Not great at all. I did order a few things on the Rare Waves BFI releases. It felt good to splash a bit of cash after not being able to do so for so long, and it couldn't happen to a nicer person. Hope you got some bargains coming through. Loved watching some films from my collection. I think the highlight was Cat People from 1942, part of the 40s Val Lewton produced horror films. It's a true horror classic. Superb cinematography with the use of black and white contrast and the shadows. This makes a scary visual treat. It's one of the few films I have from the Criterion collection. Yeah, and I remember Cat People from the 80s, I believe. That's the one that I remember. But I do remember watching the black and white one. I think it was at the time where they'd just released the newer remake, and it was on BBC Two, probably a movie drome or something. But it's a great film. Yeah, I totally agree with you with that. My question this week is, what wild animals frighten you and which ones do you like? Which wild animals frighten you? Well, I've got a funny story. It's not really animals, they're arachnids, and that's spiders. They don't really scare me. And of course, I had a friend in my hometown that had a couple of spiders. One was called Bella and the other one was called Stompon. And actually I got bitten. I've got that mark on my wrist there, look, just there. Bella was docile. It was a red-kneed tarantula, which he'd get out after we'd been to a nightclub. And he used to pet it on its back, and it used to crawl at people's arms and all that sort of stuff. But unfortunately, it met with, somebody got scared with it, and it fell off of their arm, and it landed on his steel toe caps, and it broke its back apart. So that killed that. A great shame. But he had another one called Stompon, and this one was a trapdoor spider. That was horrible. This cage that it was in, this glass case, it'd drop locusts, sort of like crickets and things in, and it would come out of its cage and grab it and take it back in. And he used to sometimes put a pencil in there, and while it was around, and it would used to bring up its legs and go like this and make a noise like this, and it scared the hell out of me. And he called it Stomp On because he said if it ever got out of its enclosure, he'd stomp on it, right? So spiders have never really been a problem to me, although, I'm not enamoured by them. I'm scared of wasps because I know I'm allergic to their stings. Bees less so. But I don't like how anything flies around me, but that's insects. I suppose I haven't thought about animals that scare me because I've seen them in zoos and they're always enclosed, and I've always thought to myself, they're all right because they're away. And I've seen them on TV, David Attenborough and, the wildlife stuff, which I love. Still love watching those. So until I'm actually up close and present to them, I don't see what I'm scared of, if you see what I mean. Bats, maybe. But again, well, that's a mammal, so that's fine. So it is an animal. So I'm only really scared of animals that are very temperamental. You could have a bull mastiff dog or something that turns, and it snarls and stuff is dripping out of its mouth and so forth. That scares me because they could attack at any point and do serious damage. But that would be the same for any animal. So I suppose there's quite a few. Crocodiles might, alligators might, but again, I've been over to Florida and I've seen them. I wasn't like running away. Do you know what I mean? So an interesting one. Would you bring back any that are now extinct or just leave it be? Should humans try and adapt evolution to their needs rather than nature? Well, the simple answer to that is I don't think we should change our evolution. Would you bring any back? No, they're extinct. It'd be nice, wouldn't it? Bring back the dodo or something, right? But they're extinct now. I think that the ones I'd want to bring back are the ones that we made extinct. Now, I don't know how the dodo got extinct, but I do know that we've slaughtered whales and all sorts of stuff to virtual extinction. All of those sorts of things, I think we ought to do everything that we can to keep them in existence. But something that is extinct now, I think there are thousands of species that are extinct. There's many types of spiders and all sorts of stuff that they're gone, and we just have to learn from that. That's how I look at that. I certainly don't want Jurassic Park, do you know what I mean, to happen. And I wholly believe evolution should be left to nature. Yeah, totally. All the best to you and your mother, and have a reet grand time. Thank you so much. And that's got me to the point where I must now go and help my sister. So you can imagine I'm a little bit behind today. This will probably be going out late again. Bloody typical. But I'll be back shortly, as fast as I can. And to my friend Ian Hill, thank you so much. And please go over and look at his channel. Definitely worth a watch. I love going there every Wednesday, and my eternal thanks to him for inviting me on. Back in a moment. And I'm back. And yes, I think I was reading out Ian Hill, the Ramblings comments. Great guy. And he put all the best to your mother and have a reet grand time, as he always does. And thanks very much, my friend. And I'm looking forward to this Wednesday. Thank you so much for including me in that, and eternally grateful for what you do. And we'll move on, shall we? Because some time has passed since I've been doing this. I've been helping my mum, but I had to do some other things. But here we go. And the next one is Bushman Blue. And he's put, "Hi Del, just been listening to you while in work. You picked up 2 great films this week. I have a big soft spot for Night of the Comment. I have Arrow Blu-ray, but I'm thinking about Scream Factory 4K. It's a shame that film didn't get a sequel." Yeah, it is. And I had that on Laserdisc. Like I said, it goes back quite some time in my ears, and VHS rental as well. But not watched those Harrison Ford, Jack Ryan films in years. Let me know how the 4K is on that, please. Mark. Yes, Mark. What can I talk about with that? I thought there was like 3 films or so in that collection. I think there are 5. And I have now got round to watching it. What can I say about it? It's definitely a better upgrade. Then again, I upgraded from a much lower format, but the jungle scenes were really, really vibrant, I will say about that. Less so, strangely enough, the scenes in the cities. I suppose it's Washington, isn't it? You know, there's definitely detail, but the jungle scenes really were vibrant, and the blacks were really black as well, which is what I'd expect anyway from a 4K HDR Atmos edition. Surprised it didn't have a more distinct audio track. I think it's DTS 5.1, but that was still a good mix. It wasn't terrible. So I'm more than happy with it, because it's one of those budget steelbooks I bought. It wasn't like hyper expensive. So happy to have that in my collection. I would definitely say if you're a fan of it, get it. If you're not, consider the 4K, but the Blu-ray might do you just as well, because it doesn't stand out like a 2001 or a Dune, or, you know, those types of films where you can definitely see it, you know. That's all I can say about that. And thanks very much for commenting. And I had a little look at your channel as well and left a comment. Great to see you buy some stuff. You bought, I think, Single White Female I commented about, and the Vikings. Oh, wow, the Vikings. What can I say? You got a bargain. Wow, you got a bargain. I then re-looked, even though I've got it, to see what it is, and the price had gone back up. Pretty typical. But there you go. Absolutely fantastic. Salute, my friend. Keep going. Absolutely fantastic, and great to go and watch his stuff. Brilliant. Moving on. So we say salute. We get to my friend Jamie Muckman Movies, and he's put, "Hi Dowboy, RE50s film, some good picks. I thought you'd watched Seven Samurai. Tokyo Story was in my honourable mentions, as was Akiru. I would recommend you try and watch those as well as Yugetsu and Rashomon, which were in my top 10. This is the thing. When it comes to this diary and that, I tend to not read these questions until the day I'm doing it. And that's so that you can see the reaction. Seventh Samurai, I might have watched it. I couldn't remember. I have to look at my collector's software to go down and do that, and I'm not prepared to sort of like really do that before I do this diary, because it's more about my memories without prompts. Do you see what I mean? What I mean by prompts is a prompt like looking at it at the time that your question comes through, like say that was 6 days ago. I'm not going to go, oh, I'll have a quick look and then I'll be able to answer. No. I tend to sort of like put a heart against it, might skim the question, go on, just in case it's just a comment with no questions. Tokyo Story I haven't seen, but I remember I had seen your video, so I knew what your honourable mentions were and stuff. Not that I wrote down, oh, here's the 10 films, and I'll have to go down in my wish list and see which ones I haven't watched. I tend to find I'll do it against the ones that I go, oh, that sounds interesting. You know what I mean? And write those down. And usually I come away every time I'm watching somebody's videos like that, like Blue Roy Movies, say, I'll get quite an extensive list by the end of the month, and ones that probably I'll still never get around to, because by the time that the following month comes around, there's another bloody list. It just goes on and on and on. That's the versatility of film and your love of, and the love of the collecting. So, you know, thanks so much for that. Absolutely brilliant. Salute, my friend, and be talking about your channel a little bit later on. Next one is David Marshall. He's put, "Evening Dell, hope you are good. On Jamie's question about 50s movies, my all-time favourite are Them and It, the Terror from Beyond Space, which was very much an early version of Alien. I recommend it. I'll have to make a note of that. But Them is something that I'm well aware of. In fact, actually, I think it was my friend Jambon that sent me a film that he said was based on a Commodore Amiga game called It Came from the Desert. And Them is based, that film is based around It Came from the Desert. So Giant Ants was definitely up my street as a kiddie. So Them is definitely one that I recognise. It Came from the Desert, the film, he sent that on purpose as a, it's so bad it's good. And you could definitely put it in that category. It's why he sent it me a DVD version, I think, rather than a Blu-ray or a whatever edition of it. But It, the Terror from Beyond Space, rings a bell, but it doesn't come to mind. I have to say, my mind's a blank on that one. Definitely have to have a little look on that one, especially if it's like an early version of Alien, because I love Alien. My God, Ridley Scott, Alien. Wow. Yeah. So salute, my friend. Thank you so much for that. Moving on. We've got Colin Jones, aka Ponder, my friend. Absolutely marvellous. Let's see what he's put. And I bet you any money it's single line stuff, and I can't remember what I said last week, let alone what I said yesterday or anything else. He's put, yeah, you definitely need a new bed for your mother. Also, glad you're keeping an eye on that cough and you're ready to call the doctor if it continues. Send in my regards as always. And as you know, I've already given an update on that, and they're coming to do a service. They won't give you a new bed, honestly, unless they come up and they say, yeah, you need one. I can see them just trying to service it. But that's the breaks. It sounds like work is actually feeling rewarding in some small way at the moment. I hope you get that chair sorted soon. And again, that's in my update. Thank you so much for your concern on that, my friend. Absolutely brilliant. One thing about this weather is that I haven't had to mow the grass much this year. Not that there's any left out the back garden with the dogs. Full artificial grass for you next year. Yes, and I've seen that in your own blog. So that's marvellous. I'm not a huge fan of AstroTurf and artificial grass, but I can see it totally being a godsend to certain families. And for you, it's going to be a godsend, so that's going to be great. And of course, it will make your backyard when you're doing your blog so much more vibrant. So that'll be brilliant. Really looking forward to that, actually, and probably seeing a video of you laying it down or whatever. That might be something that you do. I don't know. Regarding games carrying on after the servers are turned off, there is a simple solution. Provide a way to run a server of the host device like we used to do with multiplayer games of the past. There is no reason any single player section of any game should stop. I agree. Working when a server is shut down. Going online should always be optional if a game can be played single player. But the trouble is we move towards games now always having an online. It's not like it was in the past where it was something that was a selling point because not every game did it. And the thing about the when turning the servers off, they did that before Steam came along. This is something that's inherently going back in the past, and if you didn't have the software on the disk, then you had to look for other methods, like from the developer's own website to say, hey, look, download this. And remember, the internet was in its infancy in those early years, those 2000s. I only just about got broadband from Cable and Wireless, NTL, and patches and things. But Game Copy World to me was sort of like my godsend for not having to keep putting the disc in and all of that sort of stuff, because space was a requirement as well. But you're quite right; it should be optional. You're 100. I'm 100% on that. You're absolutely spot on. Couldn't fault you on that. I'm damn good for 94. I think that was because I was talking about your age. I was thinking about the year then, 1994. You are damn good for 94. It's probably because you're 108. But anyway, I fully understand everything you said about your networking experience. Thank you. Yeah, that was good to reminisce back in those days. There were times that I had an input, but most of the time, the signal came from the head office for me to go somewhere in my area, which would have been Thames Valley. And it would have said, you need to replace this. And they'd send it to my base. And I'd then take it in my car and take the old one out, put the new one in, and then test it. All of that sort of stuff. I wasn't really involved in the topology of things. But I have done some work on that. And it's always been interesting. The smallest handhold I currently own is a Game & Watch 2. Yeah, I have to say, I had to think really hard about that. And I'm pretty sure that's what it is. I haven't got one of them Game Gear keyring things and all that sort of stuff. That's a load of nonsense. I've never been a collector enough for me to go, yeah, I'm going to buy the keyring version of that. No. I've not been interested in that, I have to say. For me, bone conducting headphones are essential because I can use them when cycling without blocking out traffic noise. I have a set of Shocks Open Run, absolutely brilliant. This technology, though, was in Lollipops, that was in Techmoan and Down the Rabbit Holes videos, which amused me because they were within a couple of weeks of each other. But it was interesting how they both handled how these work, if you see what I mean. So it was great. Question: do you have any plushes? Plushes? Oh, aka cuddly toys that are TV, movie, game, or computer related. I have a couple, but I am in no way a collector. And I have to say, I've never liked or wanted to have plushes or cuddly toys of any sort. I remember a long time ago, it must be 1990s, my girlfriends at the time would do something like that. I remember Polly, possibly my first or second girlfriend ever, bought me a cuddly duck, and she had a load of these things on her bed, you know what I mean, and she thought my one needed one. I don't know, I put it on the top shelf out the way, and I don't know where it is now. I might have got rid of it, but no, I do have something I might be able to show. Let me just put it on pause for a moment. I think I've got something that I still have. Just bear with me. I did find something. And I'm embarrassed, really, probably, to show this. I remember I went round my friend Kelly's, and he'd bought, because he had a kiddie, he'd bought this thing that I was quite amused by and thought, oh, I wouldn't mind having one of those. And I looked it up. It wasn't expensive, and I bought it. It was this Scooby-Doo, right? And you'll probably see on there, it says, look, press here. It's got sensors in the Scooby-Doo bit there. And when you pressed it, it turned the sensors on. You had to press it a couple of times for different mechanisms. And what was supposed to happen is you walk past it and it would say, I'm Scooby, I can see you. And all this sort of stuff in the Scooby-Doo sort of voice. And it's still there. Look, it's dusty as hell because I'm not interested in any of this stuff anymore. But I had to find it. I found it. It's amazing. It was up on the top of my wardrobe type thing in my hallway out there where I've got my clothes and stuff. It's just buried on top with a load of other stuff. But there you go. Scooby. So, if that's amused you, I hope it did. I don't think I've got a plushie Spider-Man. I definitely have got no Funkos, any of that sort of stuff. I know that you've got a couple of Funkos. I've bought statues, and that'll be shown at the end where you'll see something that's arrived in the last couple of weeks. So, salute, my friend. Thank you. Keep doing those blogs and keep up those kerfuffles. Absolutely marvelous. And we're getting now towards the end. And the next one, salute, my friend, is from Kevin down the rabbit hole. Speak of the devil, I was talking about him a moment ago. Hi, Adele. Have you seen the newly announced Commodore 64 handheld? It's made by the same folks making the Evercade handhelds, so I think it'll be nice. I might even get one. Now, I don't know if that's been recently announced because I'm not sure of that, but the last one I saw announced was at the dual time that they're bringing out a Spectrum one. It could be Evercade. I thought it was the people who made the real 64, but it's a handheld Commodore 64 device. It comes with some inbuilt games, and I remember when it was announced, I turned around and said, well, it looks really nice, but I'm now buying handhelds because I have a need for one. You know, like I was going on a train journey or going on holiday, or I suppose I could use one when I'm in with my mother and she's watching Emmerdale and Coronation Street, but I tend to find that I watch those with her so that I can chat about it and go, what the hell's going on with them two? You know, which I couldn't do if I was playing a game. Do you see what I mean? So I'm tempted to find that's the reason why I don't have a Steam Deck or anything. I'd like one, but it'd be as a curiosity piece rather than me buying one for a legitimate reason. Anyway, we'll see what you say when you continue. I say might, because you might get one, because there are very few Commodore 64 games I am looking to play. The handheld has an SD card slot, so I can load any ROMs. I wish I'd love to play Seven Cities of Gold, and there's a Fix-It Felix someone recently made that looks great. Having said all of that, I'm certain you can list a dozen or so that you would suggest. So what games do you recommend? So it's very interesting. So this is the other reason is Commodore 64 games were never great with their color palettes. It had great at the time, but sometimes you'd have difficulty seeing the bullets, or small objects coming towards you, and you're playing it on a handheld with an even smaller screen. So when it comes to what do you recommend, you've got to design a game really, or have a game that came out at that time that's a bit like what you'd play on a Game Boy or a Game Gear or an Atari Lynx, or you get where I'm coming from. But they were purposely made for that screen. So thousands of games came out on the Commodore 64, but which ones would really benefit you having a 5-inch screen or whatever it is? Games that I would load on it would be things like Boulder Dash, because it's a puzzly type game. Grid Trap, again a puzzly but arcade field type game, just like Boulder Dash. Paradroid would probably work. Paradroid is one of my favourite all-time Commodore 64 games. Lunar Leaper, one of the earliest Commodore 64 games I ever played that was on cartridge, a bit like Choplifter, but the graphics were quite large. International Soccer would work, a sporty type game. Trying to think. You see, games like Pirates, Sid Meier's Pirates, I think wouldn't work very well because of the keyboard that you'd require really for it, and the menu system and the text. You'd be going, what does that say? Like this all the time on it. And the reason that you'd play a game is to be slightly involved, or you want something that's quick and easy to play. Ancipital by Jeff Minton might work on a handheld like that, but a game like Grid Runner probably wouldn't because of the fast nature action of it. Space Taxi might work, and less so a game like Thrust. Thrust, because it's quite small in the first instance, but it might work. Space Taxi is small, but all you're doing is a single thing where you're travelling from platform to platform delivering passengers. So that might work. There's probably quite a lot of games like, I don't know, Blagger, say, or Alvida's Monty, or Monty on the Run, but less so things like Catechis, Armalite, Salamander, Nemesis. I think that they might be less so because of the bullets and the colour palette. But I might be doing it a disservice. I've never seen the screen. So I should think it's even worse for the Spectrum. My God, I remember trying to play Glider Rider on the Spectrum, and it was all green and white. Could hardly see a thing. Like Terra Cresta, the bullets, can't see them. Sometimes they'd think about this, and you'd play a game like Commando, and the background would be black. So the screen didn't even look like it was scrolling, really, but it gave the instance of scrolling because the mountains and stuff that the little mounds that the villains, the army would jump from, would be a different colour, giving that impression that you're moving around, like Rambo, First Blood, that game that's on the Commodore 64 with a fantastic soundtrack. So hopefully I've given you some good games there. Choplifter might be one that I mentioned, even though I'd choose Lunar Leaper. So, but text adventures, they ain't going to work. Even point and click adventures might be a bit difficult. All depends on that screen. That's all I can say about it. But if you haven't got a Commodore 64, you want to start thinking about playing some Commodore 64 stuff, and you don't have the money to buy the Ultimate C64 or even the 64, which you plug into a telly, or a 64 mini, that's obviously a choice, and it might have a video out. I haven't looked into it. And if it has a video out, you'll be able to capture some of that imagery and therefore play it on a bigger screen. Then it makes perfect sense for you. Anyway, salute, my friend. Thank you very much. Love your videos. Keep them coming. Thank you for commenting. Moving on, we get to Martroid. See what Martroid's put today. He's put, it's interesting you mention ordering stuff from the US these days and how expensive the postage is. Del, that's pretty much what stopped me in my tracks when it came to buying things from places like eBay. Why would I spend $20 on a CD only to fork out $40 for the shipping and then have tax on top of that? Exactly. This is where I'm going, I can't do those big things anymore. Sometimes I didn't even think about it. I just did it, right? Can't do that anymore. Thankfully, I'm using a local company now where I only pay $6 for shipping and I don't have to worry about the tax. It's been an absolute godsend. Mind you, I don't have a whole lot of room left for physical media these days anyway, and I think everybody's in that boat as well. First world problems strike again. And I have to say, I've heard about these, and I tried to look into it once, where you have a company that you get Amazon to deliver to in the States, and that company then sends it to you, and you bypass some of the taxes and stuff because they can send it to you as a gift rather than a business thing where you have to pay the tax on stuff. I couldn't get that to work with statues all those years when I was trading with Sideshow or Iron Studios. They all wanted to send it by UPS, and it was as much as the statue. And finding the British arm that would import it for you and send it internally in your own country's mail, they pre-ordered so early that you never got them because they always made them to order, like there are 2,500 of these statues ever being made, and then we're destroying the mold and things like that. So, and when it comes to the movies, physical media, it was Jamie Muckman Movie that told me how he was getting his done, and that's when I started looking at it again. But I never went further than looking. I wasn't ordering that much, and I just thought to myself, it's a lot of hassle. But I've missed out on an awful lot of stuff, so I can't say too much about it. So for those people that are doing it, well done on you. You definitely have some very obscure discs that I don't have in my collection anymore. So there we go. Salute, my friend. And we move to the last comment, I think. It's from Robert's Retro Gaming, who's got his own channel, as I said. Absolutely fantastic. Every day he's got something new for me. But let's just see what he's put. He's put, "Hi Del, I'm listening as I wash dishes and do laundry this afternoon. So happily I've got the time and attention. So I used my time and attention last Sunday, listened to the works and didn't make much of a comment at the time. Busy with a multi-day wedding this weekend. One of my nephews is marrying a girl whose parents are from Nigeria, and it's a big event. We are off to part 3 this afternoon. All the best to you and your mum and your family." And thank you very much, and the best to you as well, my friend. And I hope that event, part 3, goes really well for you. And that's the end of the shout outs. My God, that took some time. So we best moved on to watched on YouTube. This is the bit where in my alerts I get stuff up, and I think you guys might be interested on some of the things I watch. There could be a subject here that you might want to go and look up yourself, and watched on YouTube is more the general one, although it does have 4 channels that I legitimately watch every week, and they are This Week in Retro, Tecmo, Gadget Show and Chronologically Gaming. So let's see what they've got this week. So This Week in Retro had the normal 3 plus the housekeeping and so forth. Their titles were Sometimes Tactics Are Not Enough, Getting Serious About preservation, an Atari Jaguar feels need for speed. Some of this stuff I already knew about. Sometimes tactics are not enough is about the TAC2 joystick being released by Commodore, which I knew about a week or so ago. I looked into it and went, phew, I'd love it. I've always wanted a TAC2 joystick. And I've always found buying the second-hand one where it could be knackered, not worth the 50 quid that they sell on eBay. And I looked into this one, and it's a similar type of thing. It's modernized, looks great. I bet it feels great. It's 50 quid, or $50, and I think it transfers to about £50 when you look into importing it over here. But the postage, another 20 or 25 quid, making a joystick that costs £75. Well, that's almost the price of this Elite thing here, which is far more technical than that. And if you got 75 quid, you could probably buy something of its equivalent over here. So, like the Mayflash, you might as well put your money towards that. So, it makes perfect sense to make this joystick and market it if you're buying the Ultimate 64 machine and have it sent over at the same time. But it doesn't make sense to me to have it sent over to this country for that sort of price. No. But I can understand why people will be, and even the guy that was on This Week in Retro this week has ordered one. So who am I to say? I'm just saying, for me, it doesn't make sense. And unless I'm buying an Ultimate 64, it's not going to happen. Tecmo did the Indian Wave machine. Now, he does these on occasion, these videos of gadgets that we used to see in the gadget store. And a wave machine was one of those ones that was on a motorized plinth that had coloured water mixed in with other water, and it tilted back and forth, and the wave would crash up and down as it tilted, a bit like a movable Newton's cradle type thing. And he wanted to advertise the fact that it could have been a scam. I'm glad to say it wasn't. And it was a very interesting video, but it just goes to show you how much people and how much money you have to spend on devices these days that you could have picked up very, very cheaply back in the day. I dare say it was a Kickstarter as well. The company seems incredibly small. So that was good. The Gadget Show, I think they're still on holiday. And Chronologically Gaming, he's on holiday, but he's done a couple of videos that he's posted at the time he would have normally have done a live. And this week he did Heavyweight Champ, which was in the arcades in 1976. So he's filling in those blanks while he's off of games that were missed or he couldn't demonstrate for some reason. So that was great. So those are the four that I watch religiously. The next one is the channel for the Radio Times, which is the BBC publication. They did an interview with Pat Troughton's son, Michael Troughton. And he was talking about Doctor Who, his dad, and Big Finish Productions. That was really good. And they asked him the question, what missing episodes would you like to see of your father? Which I thought was a bit of a daft question, to be quite honest, because it's like, well, I want to see all of my dad's stuff. You know, he's no longer around. He's not here anymore. I miss him like mad, so I want everything. But it was a nice little discussion on Doctor Who, and I really enjoyed my time watching it. Then I watched a channel called Ken Reacts, and I usually avoid these things when it's a reacts. Got reacts in the title. But this one was not a reaction video, but the title was called 14 Old UK Ads with the Greatest Jingles. And it brought back so many memories watching it, because there was the Bird's Eye fish finger guy with that jingle. What else was there? I'm just trying to think now. There was the R. White's commercial. I'm a secret lemonade drinker. You know, and I could add probably a ton more, like the Humphreys, which was the Unigate milk campaign. Woolworths, they had a Christmas jingle every year. That was great. It was a more interesting time. The adverts were putting so much money, you know, and the adverts were there were funny or musical or whatever. So that was interesting, and I really had a great time watching that. Another one that came into my alert box was a channel called Shot, Drawn and Cut, which was and it was called the Rare Ridley Scott documentary from 1992. And right at the beginning, I recognised the branding, and I went, I've seen this. And then when I was watching it, I was going, yeah, I know what this is. And it made me actually go away and watch 1492, Conquest of Paradise. So that was when that film came out. So that was a really interesting documentary, and I liked that. There was also a video called from a channel called Sci-Fi Graveyard, and the episode was called 15 Forgotten 90s Sci-Fi Shows That Deserved Another Season. So, of course, we've got no end of science fiction stuff, Firefly and the like, that died a death after so many episodes or at the end of the first season because the shows were put in graveyard shifts or were never given the time to expand upon. So that was great, and I picked up a couple of... there was a couple of episodes, or should I say series, that I don't remember ever seeing that sound actually right up my street. So I might go and have a little look and see if I can find any of those episodes kicking about. And the last one and the watched on YouTube was Mini Stash. This was a video called The Clone Saga Had a Masterpiece. That was right. So the Clone Saga, yeah, what an awful storyline, really, that went on for nearly 3 years. Bad time for a collecting because you couldn't avoid it, and you had to just wade yourself through it until it got to the other end. But there was what they call a masterpiece, which was a mini series called Spider-Man: The Lost Years, and it told the story in 3 issues of what was going on with a character called Ben Reilly's life. And it really was a masterpiece. It was drawn by John Romita Jr. And you know how much of a fan I am of Romita Sr.'s work, his dad. So that was a great video, and I've got those comic books, so it was nice to hear what some fan was talking about. Moving on, therefore, we get to Film, TV and Soundtrack YouTube, and we get to my friend Ian Hill, The Ramblings. And just look what he's brought out. My God, he just every week, tons of stuff. Top 5 action adventures between 2020 and 2024. Doctor Who review of The Crotons. X-Files review of Season 7, Episode 3. What I have watched this week, Episode 32. And Live With Me. What more can you say? That's something every day for me. And some interesting stuff. And of course, I had the golden opportunity to do our chats that we have on Wednesday. Marvellous. Brilliant stuff. Moving on, please go and have a look at his channel, by the way. Absolutely marvellous. And if you I hope you just like a video if you watch it, but subscribe if you can. Then you got Mondo Chelovic Movies, who I told you is my go-to guy for horror stuff, although he doesn't do stuff every week because he does have a Patreon type thing. He did a Day of the Dead unboxing and review. Very interesting review as well. He knows his onions, so definitely worth a look on that. Then you've got Blue Roy Movies, who did his weekly watches from his collection, and my Blu-ray collection, part 1, the BFI, which is the British Film Institute. Absolutely brilliant. All of those videos got a great amount of information from it. Just goes to show you that little channels do mean something. Muckman Movies did a Wes Anderson exhibit highlights. So I was supposed to go down if I could to London and visit Jamie, but it never happened because of the cost of being able to afford care for my mother, for me to be able to go down to London, watch around an exhibit, and then travel all the way back up. The price was astronomical because of not only is the train fare on a Saturday, but also the event itself, plus the getting somebody to look after my mother while I'm in London. Just couldn't get the prices down to enough where it made perfect sense. So there was that. Still saddens me. Then there's Bushman Blue, I mentioned before, who did a Blu-ray and 4K pickup, which is absolutely brilliant. And the last one is Commode and Mayo's Take, where they reviewed Coyote versus Acme, which is the new Roadrunner and Coyote cartoon advert type film. Then you've got Teenage Sex and Death at Camp. Can't read my own writing there, so I do apologise. Camp Midsommar, I think it's called, which are all reviews done this week on that BBC podcast, along with the box office top 10, which is always great to listen to. I see myself seeing Spider-Man Brand New Day being there for a couple more weeks. And that winds up the film, TV and soundtrack to the gaming and tech YouTube, which I'll come back to in just a moment, but I just need to splash my face because it's got very hot, and I need to clean my glasses. I cut myself off a bit too early there. Back in a moment. I had to do a bit more prep there, so I've just come back and we're on to the last bit, which is gaming and tech YouTube, and you'll see the prep in a moment. And we get to Down the Rabbit Hole, who I've just been mentioning in the comments, and he did a couple of videos this week. Graphics update on the PSVR 2 for Microsoft Flight Simulator, and that was really good because I haven't seen too much VR footage of Microsoft Flight Simulator, and definitely not on the PSVR 2. I don't have a VR 2. I've still got the VR 1 because I've got an Oculus, Oculus 3 and a 2. So I sort of like bypassed the PlayStation when it came to VR. And so he fills in a sort of like a hole for me in regards to what games look like on the PlayStation 4 and 5 for the VR2 headset. He also did a Sons of Vancouver whiskey from his hometown. His hometown makes whiskey, absolutely marvellous. Wish my town did that. Don't have anything like that going on. We do have beer. Hook Norton bitter, so that's not too far away from my hometown, so absolutely marvellous. But I'm a whiskey drinker, or I was, so that's absolutely marvellous. Salute, my friend, absolutely marvellous. Keep bringing out those videos. I watch them every week. There's probably another one that I've missed, but it just come out, and or it's coming out today, so can't include that until next week. So moving on, we got Robert's Retro Gaming, which again commented earlier on, and he always does some great stuff every week. He did an A to Z of gaming, letter U, because I nominated him. Thank you very much for doing that, and it was a very interesting choice that you came out with. ZX Spectrum gameplay from my friend Steve, called Dark Running, which was very, very interesting. I'll have to download that and try and play it myself. Maybe I'll put that out as a stream when I do something next week. That'll be marvellous. I'll see if I can find out what website that you can get it from. I'm pretty sure it's itch.io. So I'll see if I can find that, along with his previous hits as well. Atari 8-bit gameplay. This is where he's been doing lots more Atari 8-bit stuff because he's got a busy life at the moment, the last couple of weeks. And the games he did were Chambers of Zorp, Big Bird's Special Delivery. I can't pronounce this. Dejes Zin Solus, something like that. Lawkeeper, which looked like Zookeeper to me. Neuroid and Jurassic Park, all on the Atari 8-bit. All absolutely marvellous. Some of those never seen before, so it was a great week for me to catch up with new stuff. Then the aforementioned Steve that I was talking about there, called Steve Still Plays Games, he did 3 videos. A to Z of Gaming, the letter T, because he didn't know that I'd nominated him, so he did the same letter as me. Interesting. Did a game that I wouldn't have thought of. Absolutely marvellous. My Gaming Years, 1982, which is a fantastic series, but one that I've seen lots of other channels do, and to be quite honest, I did part of in an interview, sort of, where I put in the news of that particular year and music that was in the charts. Mainmeister's done these as well, but they're always damn interesting, and they're always so many years apart that it's great to hear about those news stories again. But he did 1982, and it was very interesting at that. In 1982, he had totally sort of different machines than me. In 1982, I was just moving towards the Commodore 64, but still had a VIC-20, and I was moving away from the Atari VCS, my Oric, my ZX80, my ZX81. All of those were sort of like in the back burner now and moving towards the future. So that was great. And he did some Beeb games as well. So he's done some great videos this week. Definitely worth your time going and have a look. Tell him I sent you there. Then you've got Colin Jones, aka Ponder. He did an A to Z of Gaming, the letter U, which was strange because he said last week that he wouldn't do those types of things because I mentioned the one that I did. So I didn't nominate him. And then he went and did it anyway. But that was great because he incorporated it as, here's a game in the letter U that you might not have seen very much of because it's not on a machine it was really designed for. So that was always interesting. Absolutely marvellous. Mentioning again this week, like I did last week, LFC Gamer and Vlogs, who did another vlog because he felt the need, he wanted to and needed to. That's the hook that gets you interested because there's so much enthusiasm. Do you see what I mean on that? Marvellous. Can't wait to see the next ones now that the Premiership started. 20th Century Gaming did Atari 800 exploring some games. He's trying to branch out into doing some other games on different systems that he hasn't really done before. Absolutely marvellous. And he did a live stream last night, which sadly I missed because I was with my mother most of last night. So I missed him doing his stream, which I believe was a Commodore 64 one. Then you've got Seb's Place, who did a video, Mastertronic sold how many? That was what the video was called. And of course I know an awful lot about Mastertronic, so I didn't really discover anything that I didn't already know, although I must admit it was a bit top heavy with Spectrum stuff, but he covered Commodore 64 and a load of other ones on there. He even did a fruit machine one, which I was led to believe that the fruit machine on the VIC-20 sold more than any other version that was there, but apparently the Commodore 16+4 sold more. So that told me, didn't it? Me being on my high horse. But an absolute fantastic video. You want to see his stuff. It's so slick these days. It's really, really, really good. Because I remember him in the days when he used to go into charity shops and buy some stuff, with his kiddie and all of that sort of stuff. So it's great to see somebody flourish for such a nicer person that you'll ever come across, and that's Seb. So definitely worth a watch. And then my old mate Mainmeister, he's always last, but he's never the least. He did Sunday Live with an emphasis on the Sharp X68000. Shoot 'em ups you need to play, and a Wednesday live stream, which I couldn't see until Thursday because obviously I was doing my live stream with my friend, so they were broadcast at the same time. And that's the end of the written part of the blog. And the prep that I was talking about earlier was because I haven't really had any physical media arrive this week. It's been one of those rare occasions where I didn't have any films arrive. I believe that's about to change. My God, we're approaching September, and that means a ton of stuff that I've got on pre-order will be coming. So this arrived about a couple of weeks ago, which I never sort of like showed. I don't usually tend to show these types of things because I'll do usually a special video on it. But this is something that I bought with a voucher. So Amazon sometimes get things wrong, but they're always good about it, and they always give me money as a voucher or whatever. And I'd just gone to see the film Spider-Man Brand New Day. So they gave me a £20 voucher. This, what I'm about to show you, was about £35. So I paid £15 for it and no postage. So it was very, very cheap. And it is a PVC statue. So I'll go to overhead and you can see it. There we are. It's made of PVC. It's from Todd McFarlane Toys. It's a statue based on the film Brand New Day. So he's in his new costume, as you can see, in all its glory. You get a comic behind it. And this is the box for it. I haven't even taken it out yet. There's the comic it's based upon, which obviously isn't a comic that would have come out, but that cover is. That's from Amazing Spider-Man, I want to say, in the around about the 125-6 range. I'd have to look that up. It's definitely before the death of Gwen Stacy. Punisher was up against Tarantula, if I remember rightly, on a ferry. Absolutely marvellous. There's the side. There's the front. There's the other side. You can see it's Marvel Studios and McFarlane Toys. And there's the bottom. And really looking forward to that. I wonder what it looks like on my other camera. Let's go back. There we go. And there it looks like there. Probably worse because of the light shining on it. But really looking forward to getting that out, doing some video on it. And like I say, I don't buy statues as much anymore. But if there's something that I want for my collection because it's a reminder of the film or something like that, I'll buy something like that. But it was £15, couldn't really go wrong. And that's the end of this particular diary. Thank you so much for watching. I hope you've enjoyed it. Some of the things that have been going on this week. I didn't think it would be as long. I was trying to keep it short this week, but it hasn't happened. So I hope you'll join me next week. There'll be an interesting set of things going on this week. And of course, I'm heading very fast to Pinfest, and I'll be bringing out a video for that, and it will be on my holiday, so there'll be a lot more stuff coming out. So stick with me, there's going to be some stuff coming out. And with that, I'm going to say salute and have a great week, and thank you for watching. Hope you get to like the video as well. Bye bye.